food and enjoy the rest of the evening. So apologies for those sitting on the couch and having to throw the neck around. I'll do my best to just speak loud enough so you don't necessarily have to look. But look, thank you all for coming. Appreciate you weathering the storm outside and the rain. It's really great to see this many people here for the first launch I've been a part of in terms of my time at Acronis. A little introduction as to who I am. My name is Lincoln Goldsmith. I'm the General Manager of Acronis, Australia and New Zealand. I've been with Acronis now for 12 months, and look, certainly I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the company I joined 12 months ago is very different to the company that we see in front of us now in terms of Acronis. We have had huge amounts of development, huge amounts of growth, and some really exciting stuff to come in the next few months, certainly tonight, but also in terms of our roadmap. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Just to give you an idea of what the agenda will look like tonight, we will keep the formal proceedings as short as we can. Obviously, I know you'd all like to get back to enjoying this awesome location and the food and the beverages that will soon flow. So just a brief introduction from me around who Acronis is and some of the changes. I think it's been really encouraging to hear that some of you here tonight aren't necessarily Acronis partners, and that's really exciting for me because like I said, we're doing some really great stuff. Some of the developments that are coming out of Acronis in terms of a product set, but also in terms of our channel programs and how we're working with the reseller community is very exciting for me personally. I'll then introduce Moheb Moses, who will talk to us about transitioning your business to the cloud. I'll give you a bit more of an introduction into Moheb shortly, but he's going to give us some very, very good insights and third-party insights around what it looks like to take your existing business into more of a cloud service business. Okay. Following Moheb, Jan-Jaap, who's affectionately known as Jager, the President of Acronis International and Executive Vice President of APJ and Emerging Markets. He's going to talk to us about accelerating growth with Acronis innovation. So what we're doing, the key parts of our technical roadmap and where Acronis is going from a strategy and a product perspective. And finally, something very exciting for us here in Australia at Acronis is our new partner program that we'll be launching as of today. So we're lucky to have Chris Hilderbrand, who's the Vice President of Global Sales, across from our head office in the US, and he's going to give us a quick introduction as to what that looks like for our channel partners out there, and then we'll wrap everything up. So without further ado, Acronis today. So look, when I first heard of Acronis, it was a number of years ago, and it was very much around the bare metal, the true image product that they have. Bare metal recovery on of your hard drives, and over the time has branched out, but certainly very different to who we are today. So Acronis, we were founded in Singapore. Our CEO is Singaporean, and our CEO is still majority owner in our company. We are a private company, so very much hands-on, very involved in the business, and having a visionary like Sergey Velasov, who was our CEO in Singapore, close to the region, means we get a tremendous amount of resourcing and tremendous amount of focus from that part of the business. So really exciting for us. Significant revenue, 650 employees worldwide, but the key part here is over 330 top-notch developers and engineers. So we are a technology-driven company. We're technically heavy. We're not a marketing organization. We are not a sales organization. We put a lot of stock in our products as technology and what it can do for customers, but what it can also do for our channel and servicing their customer base as well. Tremendous amount of partners in 90 countries, so 90,000 partners, ecosystem across 90 countries, products in 14 languages, and customers in 130 countries. Last line there is very different, and I've been fortunate enough to work in a few different companies, and I've been in the IT industry now for well over 10 years. We're headquartered in Asia, so we're not headquartered on the east coast of the US or the west coast of the US. Our global headquarters is Asia. So that really shows, and they launched the new Singapore headquarters in 2014, and that really is testament to the drive and the focus of our CEO and of the company. Asia is a growth market for us, but particularly here in ANZ, it's very much a focus for the rest of the business, but you'll hear more about that as we go along. So a tremendous timeline there in terms of where we came from. As I said, what I remember of Acronis was the true image backup. We still do that today, and it's still a very strong part of our portfolio. But over the time, we've certainly grown. We now do backup, disaster recovery, mobility, and we're also have a consumer product as well, and now, of course, cloud, which we'll talk more about later. The unique part of all of our product set is it's based on our AnyData engine, and we'll talk more about that shortly as well. We're also developing a development lab in Singapore. So further to our investment into Asia and into this particular region, we're going to be building out a huge investment, $54 million is the budget around that Acronis lab. So we're going to have developers in this area developing what our customers need, what our partners tell us they need. So we're always very open to your feedback, your thoughts, your perspectives on where you see business going or what you see our product needs to deliver in the future. So we're a recognisable leader, of course. We've got a lot of the Fortune 500 customers, as well as a significant number of awards. And again, those awards span around mobile content, they endpoint backup, full image backup. So again, a very broad capability around our product set and how we can manage your data end to end. Again, some of the customers that we deal with in the Asia-Pac region, some very noticeable companies there: Mobile, Chevron, Singtel, StarHub, Brother, Unilever, and also across Australia as well. And this is just a very, very small subset of who we deal with in Australia. So some very key partners and customers there for us. So as I said, the company I joined 12 months ago, very different to the company that I am with now. And it's been a very, very exciting ride, I have to say. So when I joined at the beginning of last year, within the first 3 months, we had new positioning, we had new pricing, we had new packaging, new naming, new branding, new logos, new website, new products, all within the space of 3 months. So the company certainly has an ability to move very quickly and be very dynamic and be very fluid. And again, this is where we like to work very closely with our channel partners around where our company needs to go in terms of our technology. So we're always looking to you all for feedback based on that. Our cloud business last year grew 10x. So again, a significant focus for us, but also a significant growth point, not only for us as a company, but also for you as our reseller and channel partners. And again, we moved our global headquarters to Singapore. Another thing that isn't mentioned in there, we acquired 2 companies last year as well. So continually pushing, continually growing, and continually expanding. So as I spoke about before, we have a number of different pillars within our business around what our product sets do. So we have the personal line, which is our Acronis True Image, very much our small office, home office piece, Acronis True Image for Mac, and also True Image backing up to the cloud as well as another product that we've added to that portfolio. We then have our business line, which is our Acronis Backup, our Backup Advanced, our Universal Snap Deploy Disk Director. Acronis Access, so this is a really exciting piece, very much a focus and a growth market for us, and that really looks at mobility. So enterprise file sync and share, the ability to access your documents safely and securely from any device at any time, but still whilst under the management of IT. And of course, last but not least, cloud, and you'll hear a lot more about that tonight. It's really the key reason we're here was we're launching the Acronis Backup-as-a-Service. We also have disaster recovery as a service, and coming very soon, Acronis Access as a Service, which really takes that mobility piece and allows you to offer that in a subscription model based on a cloud infrastructure. So very exciting. So as a brief introduction, I'd now like to hand over to Moheb Moses. So Moheb is a director and co-founder of a company called Channel Dynamics. They are a third-party consulting company. They work with a lot of different companies out in the IT world, everything from vendors to resellers to distributors, and across a very broad scale. The Adobes of the world, the Ciscos of the world, but also with your smaller startup channel partners. And their key focus is really around helping companies understand how to work better with their channel or in the channel, and in the IT channel we have. So a tremendous wealth of knowledge, and someone we really look to as a key source of information to us in helping us understand what the broader market looks like. So I'd like to hand over to Moheb, who will talk to you about how to transition your business to a cloud-based business going forward. So thank you.
So as Lincoln said, I'll be speaking about transitioning to the cloud. Now, I know within this room, various partners are at different stages. There'll be some who are much more advanced than others. So I think we'll have really three types of people at the end of today. We'll have the folks that are maybe at the start of the journey that will hopefully walk away with some ideas about what to do and some of the areas to focus on. There'll be some other organizations that are probably a bit further progressed who will hopefully see some of this and say, this gives us confidence that we're on the right track. And there'll be some other people, I think, in the room who will see some of the slides that I use and say, that's not something new to me, but maybe the way it's presented is perhaps a way that you could present it to your customers or colleagues or staff that makes it easy for them to understand. So, as I say, we cover a number of things throughout this presentation for different audiences. And for me, there was something that happened last year, and it was a phrase that stuck in my head, and I met with one of my clients, and he said, guess what? He said, DOS is back. Now, there's a few folks here who've got grey hair, and we kind of remember this, and like, you know, something, I thought of this. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. So DOS is back. And that's what I thought when he said DOS is back. But he didn't mean DOS, he meant DOS. Don't own stuff. And of course, when we talk about DOS, what we were talking about was the cloud. I'm sure everyone here in this room has heard a number of analysts, and there's a bunch of quotes from various organizations. I won't drill into these and talk about all the various comments. Can we just for the next 20 minutes, half an hour or so, just assume that cloud is growing at varying degrees with different views, but it's certainly growing. And so here's the thing: every analyst will put up a slide that looks like this. It's got customers buying stuff on the decline and customers purchasing things through the cloud on the increase. There's two problems with this slide though. The first one is it doesn't look like that, it's just not that smooth, it looks like this. And the second thing about this is everyone tells you those two lines cross over. No one actually tells you when they cross over. And see, the reason is that point is different for every organization in this room. If you've just signed up a large agreement with a customer to purchase equipment and maintenance from you for the next 3 years, maybe your red line is going to sit a bit higher. If you're brand new and you're building your business model right from the start, then maybe you're building it entirely on a subscription model, and maybe that line, the blue line, is going to increase faster. See, it's actually all about timing. Timing is everything in this. And I kind of feel sorry for these guys. Do you remember every time somebody wants to talk about an organization that didn't see things coming, they always refer to poor old Kodak. And who gets held up as the poster child for the company that gets it absolutely right every single time? It's these guys, right? Does anyone remember this? The Newton, 14 years before the iPhone? The thing is, even Apple gets it wrong as well. Every company does. This is all about getting timing right. And so when we talk about strategy, this is all about saying, how do we help you define the strategy? And strategy, this is, when I talk about strategy, to me strategy is just a fancy way of saying the big bet. Have you ever noticed when somebody talks about strategy, a good strategy or a bad strategy, it's always after the fact. You look at a strategy, and if it's successful, it's good. If it's not successful, it's bad. But anyone here who's run a business and started a business knows at the time you make that decision, it is simply that. It is a bet. And our job, mine, Acronis, and so on, is to help provide you as much information as we can so that your bet is more of a calculated bet than a guess. So let's talk a bit about cloud. Let's talk about the strategy. But first of all, what is cloud? Now, I'm going to show you my definition of cloud. So here's what I think cloud is. It is obviously something as a service, whether it's software or hardware or platform, whatever. Rapidly scalable, completely elastic in the way that it works, multi-tenant sharing, auto upgrades, maintenance, all those things happen automatically. It's completely device and location independent. Everything is on demand and self-service, so customers drive it all themselves. And finally, it's pay as you use. You only pay for what you need, no contracts, you get in, you get out, no exit fees. Now, there's a lot of folks who want some of those things, one of those things, all of those things, but they refer to it as cloud. And that's the problem with cloud. There's a whole bunch of different definitions for it. In fact, if you think about a user just for a second and think about the way they acquire technology, there's really three models. There's CapEx, OpEx, or consumption. So everyone knows CapEx. My only distinction between OpEx and consumption is OpEx to me means you usually have a fixed term and you pay the same amount every month, a bit like a managed service. Consumption is a variable term and it's a variable amount per month based on what you use. But it's still an operating expense. So if we think about that, they're really the only three financial models the way we procure technology. Here's where it becomes a little bit more complex. We may use a different one for our software applications than we do for our hardware. And the other bit as well, just to add a little bit of extra complexity, is where does the stuff sit? Because it can sit on a customer's premises, it can sit on your premises, or it can even sit on a third-party premises. And here's the funny thing. I have at one point in time or another over the last 12, 18 months heard everybody refer to every single one of those boxes as cloud. And that's one of the challenges with cloud. People say the word cloud and it can mean something completely different. And our challenge as partners is two things. It's actually understanding what it is the end user wants, but also understanding how can we deliver different aspects and who do we partner with in order to do that. I mean, our first big question is, what does the cloud actually mean to the customer? So let me move on to the next bit. So I skipped this bit today. So I was going to talk about three things, which is where we are today, building the strategy, and the 12-step checklist for success. So let's talk about strategy. And when we talk about the cloud, there's just one big issue. Technology aside, everything else aside, the biggest issue in the cloud is actually the shift in risk. As we move to the cloud, and the more we move to the definition that I had with all of those 6 things, the more we move down that list, the more we shift risk from the customer to us. It's actually about managing risk. And risk comes in many forms. The most obvious one is financial. So one of the things that we did, as Lincoln said, we work with a range of companies, and I'll just give you an example of one, where we sat down and we plotted their business, and we looked at what they're doing, and they were going to invest in the cloud and so on. And this is what it looked like. Their revenue looked a little bit like this. This is what their cash looked like. And the thing is, when you look at a model where people buy stuff, and you compare it to a model where people buy stuff as subscription, so a little bit each month, the break-even usually happens around the 18th-month mark. And that has significant ramifications for organizations. And how do you move to that? And we'll talk about that. Because quite frankly, you could actually go all in and just go completely cloud. But you need really deep pockets to do that. So the question is going to be, how do we grow our subscription business while our normal, just standard, on-prem, our perpetual license business is starting to decline? So financial risk is one, but there's also another one. Just the way we do business actually changes in some really subtle ways. So one of the aspects that is not as well understood in IT, it is very well understood in telco land, is tracking revenue and forecasting. And in telco land, they refer to a phrase called the rule of 78. By the way, out of curiosity, has anyone actually heard that term before? So let me explain the rule of 78. So pretend all you're going to do every month is get one customer who's going to give you $1. That's all you're going to do. This is what it would look like. In January, you'd have one customer, they give you $1. In February, you'd have your second customer, then you'd be making $2. Then you'd have 3, 4, etc., all the way up to December. So in that year, add up all those ones, it adds up to $78. That's what we mean by the rule of 78. Now, let me talk about what that means. The first one is, you can see how, even though we're only adding the same customer each month, because of the way this accumulates, the revenue you're getting right at the last month is significantly more, because there is this massive cumulative effect. There's also another thing that happens as well. It's kind of an interesting one. So let's pretend we have a target of 10 customers a month, to make it easy. Well, 10 customers a month, so we've got 10 in January, 10 in February, etc. It's exactly the same. Everything gets multiplied by 10, and you can see down the bottom, it's $780. It's a rule of 78 again. But now, let's look at what happens in reality. So let's pretend we don't actually follow it quite like this. We actually sign up, we start off a bit slow in the beginning. We've got 5 in January, 6 in February. We have a really strong May and June. It drops off again, and we have a fabulous end of the year. And in the end, we actually get 120 customers. So from a target perspective, we've actually hit 120 customers, exactly as we would have in the other approach. But have a look at what happens with the revenue now. Because of the delays in picking this up, we actually miss our target by 15%. So there's a couple of things to take away from this. The first one is, this is all about growing your customer base. It's also about doing it sooner rather than later. In a normal perpetual model, if you miss a sale in February and you get it in April or August, it doesn't make any difference to your end of year earnings. In a cloud model, it absolutely does. But similarly, if you overachieve in January, you overachieve for the whole year. So our forecasting actually changes, and it becomes much more important to track when we sign up customers. There's one other bit of risk as well, and it's all because of this guy. Does anyone know who this guy is? Some of you may, it's Gordon Moore. So this is the guy who co-founded Intel. Gordon Moore's the guy whose name belongs to the phrase Moore's Law, which says the number of transistors in a dense circuit doubles approximately every 18 months, or thereabouts. In plain English, it says computing power doubles roughly every 18 months or 2 years. Now, when we're selling stuff, and the IT industry has thrived on Moore's Law, when we're selling stuff, Moore's Law is fantastic. Why? Because every 2 years, customer stuff gets old and they want to buy new stuff. The problem is when we build stuff and we're selling it as a service, this is what happens. Most of what you build today will be out of date in 2 years. That means what you're selling compared to somebody who builds it in 2 years' time is going to be slower performance, less functionality, and lower efficiency. And that means higher user churn. Churn is another phrase that telcos use a lot. It's where a customer at the end of a contract says, I know what I want, I know what I'm using, I can get it somewhere else, faster, better, cheaper. We do it all the time with our mobile phones. We're not seeing it in IT yet, but we will. Because of this guy. So again, in your business plans, one of the really important things to think about is, what are we going to do with the technology that we're building today that will be out of date in 2 years' time? And we're seeing that now with people who started data centers and built business plans, and their business plans were, we're going to start making money in 18 months. The problem now is they're going, now it's 18 months later, and we are making money, but we have to invest that money in upgrading all our equipment. So part of the business plan is, what do I do with my technology? So when we come to strategy, it's actually a question, what do you want to be? You know, as an organization, what is it do we want to be? Because we can sell products, hardware or software. Now, this is going to be declining business, I get that. But I look around this room, and if every single one of you decides that the only thing you're going to do is sell cloud solutions, then it's probably very smart of me to start a business that just sells computers, because I have no competitors. So I don't think this will go away, but it's going to shrink. The margins are going to shrink, and the business will be quite different, but it'll still exist. We'll be able to sell services, and I know most of you in this room do that already, and that's probably the most profitable part of the business. We could sell an as-a-service solution from somebody else. Don't do anything, just get it and sell it, exactly as we would with hardware or software. We could choose to rebadge somebody else's. So add something from our own, get somebody else's product, put it underneath our own name, and sell a solution. Well, the final one, of course, is just build our own right from scratch. As you can see, as we go further down, the risk increases and increases. So if you'll indulge me in my gambling metaphor just one more time, it's time to place your bets, isn't it? Where do you bet? Do you put it all in, you know, here are all our options, vendors as a service model, the build it, rebadge it. Do we put everything in one? Do we spread it out? And I think that's going to be the question for a lot of the organizations. And I don't think there will be many companies that put everything on one. And our job is, we bet a little bit here, and we bet a bit here, and we grow one as the other one declines. Now that also may mean that may require skills and expertise and so on that you may not necessarily have. And one of the things that we expect will happen over the next 12, 18 months is the model will change, the distribution model will change a bit. In the past, it was very much vendor sells to distributor, sells to reseller, sells to end user. We think that will change where it will be a much more collaborative model. We'll see distributors playing a far greater role in this. We'll see vendors doing things that they perhaps didn't do. We'll see the introduction of new companies that we call cloud integrators. We'll see partners working together, and partners work together today, but we'll see that happen more and more. And there's a few reasons why that will happen. Is this area brings a whole bunch of other complexities that not everyone has. One in particular is the billing system. Because now we have much more transactions of a smaller amount. So if you think about the way we work today, if we sold, for example, a piece of software or a piece of equipment for $20,000, it would look like this. So the first year, you'd make the sale, which is $20,000, and then you'd have subscription over the next 2 years at maybe 20% or so. So it's 3 transactions. In the new model, it's 36 transactions of something that is a fraction of the initial one. So can I just say, I know a lot of you here pride yourself on the customer service you provide to your customers, that personal touch, the fact that you know them, being able to go out of your way to sort out problems. And that is great, and it's a testimony to the customers that you have. However, any of the processes that you have now that are manual, all those things that you do after hours to fix up customers, the things that didn't go smoothly, multiply that by 12. Because that's the challenge that happens in this. So when I talk about your billing system and automation and how important that becomes, it's because at some point in time, if your logistics fails, your customer service may not be enough to keep your customer. And I imagine everyone, I mean, if you've been around for a while, you've dealt with different distributors, and at some point you have that conversation, you know that conversation when you say, I really like you and I really like your company, but you're just getting too hard to do business with. You know that awful conversation that happens? Well, that may happen with your customers saying that to you if we don't get this bit right. And that's what I mean by working with partners who can sort out this issue. The other one that's a really important one is a compensation plan. We need to find salespeople and keep salespeople who actually help us sell cloud. And we see 3 models happening. So the first one is one where we pay the sales reps the commission up front. So if they sign up a 3-year agreement, we pay them for that 3-year agreement up front. Effectively what we're doing is, as a company, we've taken the risk, but we keep our salespeople. But we don't educate our people to behave any differently when that happens. The other extreme is to pay the salespeople purely on their yearly revenue, so commission as it goes along. The danger there is sales reps' commission drops dramatically. If they're there for 2-3 years, they'll be very wealthy individuals, but for that first year and a half, it's tough. We think there'll be a hybrid of the two, where there'll be an upfront percentage, and then there will be an ongoing one. And over time, it may move to the second, but initially that's a hard one to do. But when you talk about your business model and your financial model, this is an important one to factor in. How do we pay our salespeople so that we can keep them, but without taking on the whole risk? And actually, while I'm on the topic of salespeople, let's actually talk about the sales folks we have, because a lot of them are very good at building relationships with customers, and they're very good at positioning the product. In the work that we've done with a lot of partners, there's a lot of salespeople who actually don't have the business skills necessary to deal in this area. Because what we're seeing with cloud is that decisions aren't being made just by IT. They're being made by finance people, marketing people, business leaders. And so developing business skills within our salespeople is going to be important. Even how they sell. In fact, there's a fundamental difference between the way IT sells and the telco world sells. If you think about IT, this is usually how we sell. We're going to sell a server, and how do we sell it? We say, this server is going to cost you whatever it is, $20,000 for the whole shebang. And when the customer says, no, that's too expensive, then we say, okay, let me put together a financing option for you. But go into any telco dealer and say, I want a mobile phone, what's the first thing they do? They give you the plan. And only if you want to buy it, then they say, grudgingly, well, it'll cost you this much. So there's a shift in how we sell. We need to start our salespeople thinking to position cloud and subscription first and perpetual as a fallback. In fact, we will actually have quite a new sales approach as we move forward. If I summarize it today, we sell to IT. In the future, we'll be selling to the business. Today, we focus more on our product expertise. In the future, we'll actually be selling business expertise. Today, we try to get breadth and coverage, try to get a whole lot of customers. In the future, it'll be much more about vertical knowledge and vertical expertise. Today, the money is actually in deployment, selling it, installing it. In the future, the money will be in usage, driving usage. Today, renewals are additional. It's something you ask people to renew every year. In the future, that'll just be part of it. It'll just be included in the fee. Today, services are sold to make things simple. In the future, customers expect it to be simple to begin with. Today, we provide training just in case the customer needs it. In the future, they expect just-in-time training. And you can see it in some of the software that's appearing now. Really intelligent software pops up and lets you know when you need to help on something rather than providing the training up front. All the processes that are manual today will need to be automated. Today we track usage reactively. In the future we'll have to track it proactively. And the way we analyze data, today we look at it retrospectively. In the future, the smart companies will be able to look at data online, in real time, interpret it, and act. So let me summarize this by kind of giving you a sort of a 12-step checklist, if you like. So if I summarize all of these things, it begins with that first one, which is what is cloud? Actually doing the customer analysis and understanding what does the customer want. Cloud begins with the customer, it doesn't actually begin with the technology. And understanding what do they mean and what do they need. And it's amazing the number of customers that I meet with who say, we want a cloud solution. And really it's a managed service, or it's a leasing option, or it's a bunch of kit that's sitting in their back but they just want to finance differently. Or sometimes it's completely in the cloud, they don't want to touch it, completely subscription, and it meets all those 6 criteria. So that's the first thing. Second one is the strategic element to this that we talked about. Are you going to build it? Are you going to partner with someone else? Are you going to resell? Who do you work with that it gives you the option to do any of the above? The financial ones, so cash flow, working capital, what new revenue is going to come in and what will disappear. And I thought this was going to be easy. I thought I could do this. I'll sit down and just plot a company's business and see what it looks like. I needed to look out 4 or 5 years to actually understand the real ramifications of what it meant to move to this model and factoring in commission schemes, compensation plans, churn, all those sorts of things to really understand what's going to happen. Billing, so I talked about that. The accounting system, is it flexible enough? Can you do billing? Or can somebody else do it for you somehow so that you don't need to? The organizational structure. Do we need separate sales teams? Does everyone remember in the old days when hardware was bundled with services? When you bought hardware, somebody came out and installed it and that was built into the cost. And then we split them. And some sales reps didn't make that transition. They still wanted to sell product. And I think we'll see that today. We've got partners, we've got sales reps who can sell product and services. And some of them may not actually be comfortable moving to cloud services. And it's a transition. And maybe we need different teams, different expertise, etc. And that's the structure. How do we have a sales team? Do we have an acquisition team? Do we have a retention team? A bit like some of the large telecommunications companies. So that structure, do we actually need to hire a cloud expert? I'm sorry. The legal aspect, where does the liability sit? Does it sit with you? Does it sit with the vendor? Does it sit with somebody else? Is it somebody else that can manage some of our risk? The customer lifecycle. So I didn't spend much time talking about this, but one thing that I will say is that when somebody acquires a cloud service, once they're up and running, once everything's working well, again, think about the way you use a mobile phone. Once you know your usage patterns, etc., at the end of that contract, it's easy to churn. So part of the customer lifecycle is working out at what points do you touch that customer to introduce a new service. And the telecommunications companies have got this down pat. They know if you just have a mobile phone with them, they could lose you. If you have their mobile phone, and your home line and your broadband and your cable TV, you're going to be with them for a long time. So customer lifecycle is about touching customers on a regular basis and introducing new services. That's actually how we maintain loyalty. And then there's vendor and distribution selection. So are they aligned with you? And the phrase that I use is, do they walk the talk? I've met a lot of vendors who say, we're cloud. Cloud's really important to us. It's absolutely crucial. Then you look at their compensation plans and they're still paying their reps on perpetual licenses. You look at their revenue targets and the revenue targets are all out of whack. So look at a vendor and a distributor that says, we're committed to this and this is how we're aligned. This is the systems we're putting in place. This is how we're paying our people. This is how the level of investment and the commitment that we're making. And then finally, the last three are all internal. Sales, marketing, and support. Are they all aligned? Have we got a sales organization that understands this? Have we got the right messaging coming out of marketing? And finally, do we have support infrastructure to support customers as they go on? So as I said, my aim was to try to give you some ideas as you leave here to think about the things that you do. This presentation will be sent out to you from Laura and the Acronis folks, so it'll have a bunch of points. But I'll be here after JJ's presentation if anyone has any questions, and happy to talk about this. Do we have time for questions, or should we leave it till the end? Leave it till the end. Thank you for that. I hope that was useful.
Thank you. Let's start with the next section. Yeah, probably don't have to introduce myself. Lincoln did it already. Everybody can call me JJ. That's what most of the people tell me, because it all started actually in this region when I came to Asia the first time in 2001, when people said, "What's your name?" And I said, Jan-Jaap Jager. And they said, "What?" And I said, Jan-Jaap Jager. And I said, "What?" And I said, JJ. Oh, JJ, easy. So that's how it started. Before we're going to go into my presentation, don't expect a deep product dive demo presentation. What I'm trying to show you today is how we as Acronis going to or have already been developing our products, our visions that we had a couple of years back, especially based on feedback from our partners, but also how we're going to move forward in the future. And especially some of those topics that Moheb has been addressing in his presentation is very good correlating, and that's why we asked him also to come on stage, because what we try to correlate is some of the challenges that we saw with some of our channel partners. But first of all, can everybody put their arm up, hands in the air? Everybody just, I'm gonna ask 3 questions, and everybody, yep, okay. If you say yes, keep your hand up in the air. If you say no, put it down. Who's got a PC or a workstation? I think it's a very easy question, right? Okay. Who's got a smartphone? All right. Who's taking pictures of with their smartphone? Like important pictures with their smartphone. Would it be okay if you lose this data? I think almost everybody puts down their hand. No, it's not. Just imagine you take a picture of your kid first walking. You see him walking, you take your phone out, you make this video or this picture. Just imagine you would lose it because your same kid takes the phone, walks to the toilet, drops it in the toilet. So data loss is not about if it will happen. No, it's more about when it will happen. And here, this example was just private people. Mostly, maybe you have some documents of your business on your PC, but mostly people privately don't think so much about it. But businesses do, and they should, for 3 major reasons. 1, security. Protecting your data, which is in a lot of companies, their source of income, or basically the core of their company, need to be protected. There are many ways how you can lose that particular data. Secondly is the privacy. People underestimate how important privacy is, that you can see your data, but somebody else cannot. And the third one is basically the safety that you have. Safety in the sense of, who's got access, or how easy can you get access, or for example, natural disasters. We've seen over the last couple of years a lot of new clients in some of the emerging markets coming to us because we lost everything because we had a flood. In Japan, we are one of the strongest backup brands in Japan. We saw a spike, and of course we don't want to profit based on disasters, but we saw a spike on demand, and people said, okay, how can we do a remote disaster recovery, for example? So those are areas where people need to think about, okay, if I have data in my company, how do I protect that? We see other trends into the market which makes data protection even more important. First trend, we saw many years back the trend moving from physical to virtual. Right now, we see a big trend from virtual to physical. From virtual to cloud. But we also see again already kind of this, okay, but I do something in the cloud, but I also want to make sure that it's in my physical environment that I have, and how do I combine that? The center point of this kind of trend is data. You want to move data in a secure way. The second kind of big trend is bring your own device or mobile clients. I have my own phone. I access my corporate networks, my corporate files with my own phone into. But the IT person says, I have no control over your phone. So if I have no control over your phone, how do I have control over your data that you do? How do I know that you're not getting an important private document through your emails and you upload it to some Dropbox that you share with somebody? I don't know what you're doing with it. So it's also a concern. So it's an advantage because group collaboration, you're enhanced with it. You can get access anywhere, anytime, on any device. But you also want to make sure that the confidentiality of your company's data, which is your value, is not shared with people that you don't want to share it with. The other thing is data growth. One of the biggest challenges that we're going to see over the next couple of years is how are you going to handle this growth? Up to today, we have a certain threshold of data that we produce a day. 2 years from now, we produce, as people here in the room, twice as much. Five years from now, or 4 years from now, it's going to be quadrupled. That means we can generate so much data, and the question is, we're going to generate a lot of data that we just don't want to lose. So how are we going to deal with it? The last portion is big data. Now, big data is, some people say it's a trend, some people say big data is the new big thing. But what I say is that big data is actually also where a lot of companies depend on. A lot of companies are founded and have their business model by collecting, analyzing big data and make money out of that. If they don't have a very interesting security measure in place to make sure that that data is secure when something happens, then their company could be out of business if something happens and they don't are prepared for that. So those are trends which all have things in common. It's data. It's data, data, data. You lose your laptop, you can buy a new Windows server or Windows operating system or Linux you can put on it. You can buy a virtual environment, a license new from VMware or from Hyper-V. But the data that you had on those machines, you cannot create again if you have not protected it in the right way. And that is what already Lincoln shared a little bit. That's what we do. That's what we are going to do in the future as well. However, what Lincoln also already mentioned, in the last 12 months, we changed a little bit how our company is going to do it or has been done it in the past. We still do it in those three major categories: backup, disaster recovery, and secure access. All of them have something to do with how you deal with data. We do a little bit more, disk utilities, cold storage. That is a product range that we, of course, sell as well. But the thing is that what we're going to focus on more as well is privacy management and archiving. Archiving because we're going to generate so much data, and most of this data, we're not going to use it, but we still want to keep it. So how can you do that in a successful, secure, accessible, and cheap way? That's going to be the future for a lot of those storage vendors and companies like ourselves to think about how we're going to develop in that direction. And that's where we're going to very much focus on. Then, of course, also hot data storage, the data that you use, how are you going to get access that in a way, right way, in a cheap way. E-discovery, very attractive. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about it, but have a look into it. It's something that we're going to do something there as well. And of course, forever storage and Glacier, etc. To go into those three areas, and there's a fourth one, but I come to later. Backup, just a quick backup overview. Everybody knows why we need to make a backup. One of the key challenges that we have is that people have data on multiple locations. We also say you need to do a 3-2-1. You need to have 3 backups on 2 different media and at least on 1 different locations. Because I hear it all the time that we go to vendors and says, yeah, we have a backup strategy within our company. I'm not saying that your company will burn down, but what will happen if your company burns down? And your backup that you have in your company, it doesn't work. So that's why it's always very important to have, several copies and at least 1 that is not where you're daily working from. So that is a very important. Multiple locations need to be supported. We do that, of course, in our products. Encryption, security is, of course, a very standard thing. But one of the key things that are changing now very quickly as well is the ability to very quickly restore the latest data that you have. Because you change your data all the time, so you don't want to make a backup and then you work a day and then basically you want to restore because something happened with your backup and you can only restore how you begin the day. So that kind of portion, the quickness of synchronization of what you change to make is going to be very important, and it's part of our products as well. However, a lot of vendors in this market also say, yeah, we are very strong. We do virtualization, mostly focused on Windows. We have vendors in the market that says, yeah, we do only clouds. And we focus mostly on PC and endpoints, or just file backup. We have people that focus very much on the enterprise space, on the large systems, mostly dedicated environments, a little bit virtualization. What we tried to do very from the beginning was, we don't care what you're doing. If it is data, we want to protect it. We want to make sure that it is backed up, accessible, and recoverable. And that's why, if you look at Acronis, we are the vendors that try to say is that, we don't ask you a question what you want to back up. No, you tell you want something to back up, and we back it up. If you have Windows or Linux, doesn't matter. If you have physical service, virtual service, doesn't matter. You want to back up into the cloud, and to on-premise, and to virtual, doesn't matter. You want to do PCs, you want to do Macs, doesn't matter. You want to do Hyper-V, VMware, doesn't matter. All our workloads that we support in one single software or one single solution, which is based on the Data Engine. And that's one of the key advantages that we're going to see more and more as well. There will be so many different locations, especially when we talk about cloud. People will move more into the cloud, and people want to make sure that is also secure, accessible, and recoverable somewhere else if it needs to be. So our solution is also here, and then Backup-as-a-Service is that particular solution that can enable that. Enables you to centralize, manage all those different kind of workloads into a central location, on-premise, off-premise, from physical, from virtual, from PC, or whatever kind of application you will have. Disaster recovery. A lot of people say, no problem, I have my backup. Backup is sure, it's nice, but the problem starts when you lose your data, because then you can recover it, I'm sure. But what is the problem of recovering data? It's the time you lose of production of your company or yourself by recovering the data. Let's imagine I lost my PC once, I had a crash twice of my PC. I had not so much data on it, 250 gigabytes to 500 gigabytes. It's still okay, recoverable in a couple of hours. But let's imagine you're a company with 20 terabytes of data. To recover that 20 terabytes of data, you don't do that in 1 hour. And that's the point. So sure, you have a security that you can recover your data, but isn't it that you'd like to have a security that you can actually recover the data as quickly as possible so that your operations have no interruptions? And that's why we, and Lincoln already mentioned it, bought a company. We did already disaster recovery. We do it already very swift, on-premise, with our sold licenses through many of your partners already in the past. But we bought a company, Nskill, in September last year. And what they do is something really unique. It's a disaster recovery as a service. But what you know in the market is that, okay, I have 5 servers over here. That's my on-premise. And I'm going to take now 5 servers in a cloud space somewhere out there, that if this goes down, those 5 servers will take over. 5 servers here, $50,000. 5 servers here, $50,000. You need to run it. There's a data center, there's space, there's recurring costs. All different costs that you have here as well. Why? Because you use it maybe once a year. Maybe you use it never. Why would you invest in a 100% replication? Of course, if your company is depending on such an important file or data or information or operations that you need that like in a millisecond again, if this one goes down, maybe it makes sense. But I can tell you that 99% of the environments out there, especially in the small medium enterprise and small medium business, they don't need that and that's what we do with disaster recovery. We have a lot of customers out there that have already a backup. Let's bring that backup through an intellectual property that we have bought with Nscaled towards a data center somewhere out there. It's installed in such a way, or made available in such a way that it always synchronizes with your system so that it's up to date. But if your source system goes down, you don't have here already a complete system built up. Then what we can do, completely automated, it's coming back to his presentation, automation, making sure that you don't have to do a lot manually yourself, is boot up your existing environment over here in a virtual concept with cloud computing where you can burst, you can take all the resources that you want. And yes, on that moment, you would be interested in paying whatever it costs because your business is down. And you want to build that up very quickly. And we can do with this solution within 15 to 30 minutes, 30 minutes is already long, a complete replication of your existing solution. Some people will say, that's interesting, we'd like to know a bit more. Not going to go deeply more in that, especially because a lot of people are maybe a little bit skeptical. But there is a way how we can do that, and that's what we do through the cloud with disaster recovery with the company that we bought, Nscaled. Now, it's not only that I'm saying it's a great product. The Forrester Wave says it as well. The interesting thing is, our solution is in the top notch with Terramark, SunGuard, IBM, with the bigger players that sell those solutions for a lot of money. And those solutions are also doing the job, they're doing very well. But what we try to do is make a similar solution available for a much lower price because of sharedness, multi-tenancy, is scalable into the cloud on the moment that you really need it, where you then really are willing to pay for it. And that's the biggest difference. So it means that this disaster recovery solution is actually usable for the average day company as well, which you and I are dealing with it on a daily basis as well. So that's disaster recovery as a service, which is one of our products that we have launched last year. It comes on top of our existing licensings and installation space that we have already. The last one, which is a key core product of ours, is of course Acronis Access. This is all about sync and share. Now, how many of you have Dropbox? How many use of Dropbox? It's quite a bit. How many users, and you don't have to put on your fingers, but I can tell you that some of you will not share it, but they use it also to share corporate information. Now I tell you, you're fired. You're not fired, you're gonna go to another company. The IT person of this particular company has no idea if you have actually deleted this data from your Dropbox account, because there's no control. So one of the biggest problems. People want to give you as a company also, you can bring your own device, you can get access to all our file shares, we can group collaborate between each other, you can share with me, I can share with you. But the point is, with that, you could lose a little bit of control. A little bit, you lose all the control because you don't control the device, you don't control the content, you don't know what they're doing. And a lot of companies don't like that so much. So what we do with Acronis Access is giving you the same kind of features and functionalities, giving you the option to share, sync and share, to make sure that you can actually edit a document, somebody else edits a document, it gets synchronized automatically to one single place. You can set certain policies, or you can set group collaboration groups that you can share with each other. All of those things you can do, but you can control it as an IT person. You can control that you give access to my private phone to somebody that, even if I show you that I log into this phone with my password and you download the same app from the App Store, log in with your password, you will not get access to it. Why? Because it's bound to this phone, this app, and my password. So it's an additional security. And only if the IT person has given the allowance that this person can access this phone, they can get access to this data. And by the way, this data on the phone is not on the phone itself, it's in a secure container. That means remotely the IT person is able to wipe your secure container with all the corporate documents that you have that you sync and share where you have access to remotely. If you lose your phone and say, I lost my phone, I don't know, it's no problem. They wipe it remotely. All your private content, you can wipe that personally if you want to through this Apple phone functionality, but you can decide not to do it because it could be that you put it somewhere and you forgot about it. Oh yeah, you found it back a day later because you put it somewhere in the desk and I forgot it. Now you can just reconnect through the IT person that can give you access and bring all those documents back so that you can actually access it again. But you have an additional security. You can say that a group of people can only share a document, but they cannot download the document, they cannot alter the document, they can only read it. It's happening a lot with auditing companies. We have a lot of auditing companies that get access to file share within a larger corporation that says, here's all our agreements, please check our income with the agreements that we have. They don't need to change it, they don't need to download, they only need to check, oh yeah, $1 million deal, yeah, $1 million invoice. Perfect, matches. So why would you give them a full access of all the documents that he can download? And even if he can download it, you cannot track it. Here, you can see if the auditor actually had watched the document. If he had access to this document, we can even track what kind of changes he made in the document. And we can also see which versions then are made, and we can recover an old version. We can also block out all the private email accounts. Again, many, many ways of controlling what your people are doing with your corporate information on any kind of mobile device and still get access to them. And we try to make it easy and simple. That means that you as an end user or the customer end user don't feel the difference. They can do still the same thing. However, on the back end, as an IT person, you have control. And you can have this on-premise. However, we're going to launch next quarter also one, which is then called an access as a service, or sing and share as a service. The name is not 100% known yet, but next quarter we will have this type of services that you can build just like the Dropbox services and sell it as a service to your customers that you then maintain and control, completely multi-tenant and separated from each of your customers. Now, cloud, we talked about it. Very important for us as well. I made it the fourth category, but actually it's a category that's across the first three major categories. Because I don't see that cloud is what Moheb also said, that it's only the cloud. No, it's a combination because you still have things on your laptop, on your phone, and on your service as well. You can put things in the cloud, but you can also have things on premise. So it's the hybrid world or the capabilities that you can manage all of these areas, secure the data between all of those areas. Because again, it's the data that connects all of those areas together with each other. Also in the Australian market, big growth. I'm not going to go deeply into that. But for example, also the applications and services, and Moheb already mentioned, is that especially if we look about cloud, it's about retainment, it is about churn rates and how you can keep your customers. Those are the services that Moheb mainly offered. The interesting thing is, in this research that's done last year, two major ones, file sharing and online backup, is that the areas where we focus on. It's the key things that a lot of service providers, but also resellers and value-added distribution are focusing on and trying to offer now next into the market as well, because it's basically what you use on a daily basis anyway. Payroll and accounting, again, what's connected to that? It's an application, it's a software, but what does it generate? Data. You don't want to lose your financial data of your company, so what do? Make sure that you have a backup and a disaster recovery alternative if something happens with your system. And again, Acronis is that portion. So looking at the architecture, the future, what we have done, that what I'm sharing here today is actually not something new that you have been sharing with us. About 2.5 years ago, I think almost 3 years ago, we started developing the Innodata platform. And why? Because we got the feedback from our channel, our value-added distributors, and some of them are here as well, to saying, hey, there's a trend, cloud is coming, how do I serve my cloud through my existing channel? How do I bill through the existing channel, just what Moheb said, not one pricing, but every month I need to do it again? Or how do I deliver a service on a monthly subscription basis when he doesn't want it anymore? How can he automatically cancel it without my interference? This was the request that we got already 3 years ago. When we started developing this platform, it was not about, okay, how do we deliver the end result of securing your data, but it was on how you deliver in between of the end result of how you back up the data and how you deliver it through a value chain. And us as Acronis, we are betting on our channel. We don't sell software direct. We work with a distributor, we work with resellers. That's why we have a huge ecosystem. And that's for us very important to enable them. And that's what we launched last year, and the Innodata platform, where we said, okay, last year in February, we launched the first product, which is Backup-as-a-Service, which enables you to do several things. And that's the vision that I would like to bring across to you here. Not about how the product exactly works and how the details, but what you can do with that as a channel partner. One is, of course, offering different kind of solutions. Due to the fact that it's on one platform, you can build both, on top of Backup-as-a-Service, many additional services that you can offer to your clients. If they have already backup as from Acronis on-premise, and they have no cloud yet, now you can connect it to Backup-as-a-Service or to cloud attached from Acronis or from yourself or from a service provider, and says, why don't you bring it also partially in the cloud? That's first step. Hybrid model. You have it on-premise, make sure you have also a second copy into the cloud. First step that you can upsell to your customer. The same is with disaster recovery as a service. It's built on your backup that you already did. Access as a service. It's a backup data or an accessible field of data which you want to access from any device, from anywhere, at any time. All those different services on top of it. Storage, of course. The more data, the more storage you need. You can also offer that as a type of service, as an overflow from what you do locally. The other thing is that what is very important is scale. It's not one platform, one system, one environment that you deploy for one particular customer. You have multiple customers on one system. So what Moheb already mentioned, multi-tenancy, completely separated users and end customers from each other, and multi-tiered is very important. Because you don't only have a distributor or a reseller as an end customer, no, you have different kind of customers that have potentially also again customers. And how do you deliver that service towards those customers without people seeing what you're doing or without seeing what kind of pricing you set? So it's a very important thing that you have this multi-layered kind of concept. Scalability. If you put everything on one platform, you need to be highly scalable. Especially it's about data. Data doubles in 2 years. Make sure your platform is scalable. Right now, I see a lot of concerns of some of those larger players that have systems on site that says, if I need to scale double my size of my data, this is going to be very, very expensive. Why? Because I need to buy double the amount of hard disk from this appliance that I bought, and I cannot make a choice which kind of appliance or hardware I would like to put in the appliance because the appliance sets the rules which hardware should use. So it's also an issue what we have been dealing with, which we wanted to overcome with, for example, our software-defined storage, where we said, take any hardware you want, any kind of storage device or hard disk, make it then and storage from that through software. That's what we try to do. The other thing is, of course, usability. Because if you want to offer hosting services through, for example, Acronis, in the past you installed it, it works, it runs, done. But now you would give the power, the empowerment to the end customer. So you have a distributor, and I can give it over here to the next one. So you have the top layer, which is the management layer of the top level. Then you have a distributor. A distributor has many resellers. So the distributor gets, for example, 10 terabyte, and he cuts it up in 10 pieces of 10 and gives it to the reseller. Each reseller gets 10 terabyte. Then the reseller has a sub-reseller, or let's say for the users that uses 10 users, he cuts the 10 terabyte in 1 terabyte. Each of those layers have their own interface. They can set their own pricing. A distributor can set for one reseller one pricing and another reseller another pricing, because it could be that he has more commitment, or he pays something up front, or basically he has already more usage and he gets some discount, or the same thing with an end customer. I add some additional value and services, and with that I can set also different pricing. But each of those levels is completely separated and can be managed by themselves. You have an interface where you can manage how much terabyte people get, or if I am an end customer, I can say, okay, I have 5 employees, I only want to do backup with 1 PC. Tomorrow, when I add another 2 PCs, I can do it myself. Very simple. Source, destination. More than I don't need. I could maybe more if the reseller allows me to, but the reseller is managing that for me. I just want to add this automation tool, that's delivery. It doesn't change the effect that we do the same thing, securing backup at the endpoint. However, how we deliver that and how we automate the delivery of this type of service and how we bill for this automated service, that's completely automated with this tool. And yes, integration and billing system is very important. This solution is integrated with, for example, an aggregated cloud platform like Carl's Automation that is now served by Telstra, that Ingram has. I think that Ingram was here as well. There are other distributors, other resellers, hosting providers like Us Hosting, Uber Global. They all have those kind of platforms in place where you can plug into and you can actually completely automate the billing as well. So that is just basically what we got about 3 years ago, a request from our channel partners. How can we offer it? How can we do a multi-tiered? How can we set pricing, make it automated, and start selling the same kind of functionalities on-premise, but now into the cloud? Deployment models is also important. What Moheb also said is like, not everybody wants to invest upfront. So it's very important that you have different deployment models. One deployment model is a data center here in Australia. We do everything for you so that you can scale up the business, you get volume on the platform, you can offer and resell backup as a service to any type of your customers for any kind of data that you would like to back up, but you don't do any investment. You can start selling right away. However, most of the partners, and this is why we want to offer that, we wanted to get some scale so that you have, and I would say a mass where you can make your investments justified. So then the next step would be hybrid. You say, I want to own control the customer data. Or even the customer says, I want to control the data. I said, sure. Bring the storage on your premise or on the customer premise, but I will help you manage the complexity and the timelines of when you do a backup or the restore. That's my service towards you. So you still control your data on-premise if you want to, but I will help you to do the complex management from where you want to do all your backups, from PCs, from servers, from applications, etc., from file shares. The other one is partner hosted model. You go to a service provider or a value-added reseller says, I want to have everything in my house because this is going to be an anchor point that I want to offer to my customers. Build my own storage, build my own management system, put it in a co-location space or put it in my own data center if I have one, and offer that to my customers completely. That's possible as well. And the other thing is, and this is a very interesting as well, we've been using and selling a lot on-premise. A customer wants to have a backup solution, you sell it on-premise. This solution can be also installed completely on-premise behind the firewall. So you can build up your backup as a service scenario to offer to your customers within the different departments, the different services that you want to do. So all the different models, it's across our product. This is just an example of how we do it, for example, backup as a service. But all our developments that we do on the AnyData platform has this type of capabilities worked out for you so that you can take it as a channel partner and bring it to your customers. And yes, completely white labeled. You can make, as a reseller, your own logo and your own colors so that the end customer thinks it's your service, you host it, you manage it. Distributor can do the same thing. They have their logos, like for example, as Ingram is going to push it into the market, to the resellers, they can put their logo in, but you can still rebrand it into your service. So your customers has this feeling he gets your service. That's a very important factor because we want to individualize each of one of you because you add value towards this particular service so that you can actually sell it for a certain price and in that particular segment. That is what we have today. That is what you can have today. That's what we launched today, this type of services. But we're going to do much more. Because what everybody should realize is that data is everywhere. The cloud is coming up with those larger players as well. And people see that sometimes as a competition. You know, Office 365, when it first got launched, every reseller and service provider, oh, it's going to kill my business. But now there's a way that Microsoft has found, for example, a way to help also the partners to drive these types of sales as an add-on sale to the other services that they have. And that's the same thing we want to do as well. Why? Because data is everywhere. And that's what I would like to share here. The vision, what is going to happen over the next couple of months with Backup as a Service. One, we will integrate with Amazon. Amazon S3. You can back up not only to an on-premise, you can back up to a data center of your choice, but you can also select Amazon location S3. You can back up to Amazon. We do the same thing with Azure, with Microsoft. We have a strategic partnership in June that we're going to launch with several interesting collaborations that we're going to do with them. So you can choose to back up into Azure if you want to. But you also can choose to back up from Azure to another place. Give you the flexibility as a service provider partner to deliver and to offer that what your customer wants. We integrate with Windows Azure Pack. Very, very important. That comes very much in time. We're working on a data project right now in New Zealand where we have several retail stores that have systems in place remotely that wants to back up through Backup as a Service in Azure Pack, with Azure Pack, all the data in a central location and management. That's what we're going to work with. I know for a fact, because I spoke to some of your people here, that you offer Office 365 as a referral or as a reseller. But now, how is the customer accessing this Office 365? Through his mobile phone, workstation, desktop, any kind of PC. What does he have on that? Data. Probably the data he wants to protect. Why not offer a bundle Office 365 with Acronis Backup-as-a-Service so you can back up also your PC data into the cloud, just what Office 365 is. Everything is in the cloud. But it comes more. in the future, the plan is to actually also give you an option to back up Office 365 towards any other location. Gives you, again, the flexibility. Bring it into the cloud. I think it's absolutely the right way to go. I think the Office 365 best move ever. And yes, I worked 6 years for Microsoft, and I was part of the team that started doing then called hosted messaging collaboration. I really, really believe in the strategy. It's the best product ever. But if you would like to have an alternative choice that you would like to back up from that, you can do that as well. Disaster recovery as a service integration, sync and share, I already talked about that as well. All on top of backup as a service. You can connect it, you can upsell, you can cross-sell. All of those types of services will be integrated by the end. We do much more. All based on the Anidata engine. Anidata engine is key. We develop one solution for one platform, we can mount it to all the other different platforms. Here, just a quick screenshot. We're going to launch it in June officially with the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference. This is a screenshot of Windows Azure Pack. There's a backup service over here. If you click on it, you see backup as a service powered by Acronis. That means you can completely automate it within this particular environment already through the APIs of Microsoft and us. You can connect it and bring the backup into the cloud. So not only sell Office 365 and sell Azure space, but also make it easier for people to bring their data into the cloud from Microsoft if you would like to work with this partner. But that's not only it. The biggest challenge what we have, customers have one environment in place. And how do they move from this on-premise solution towards this new licensing model, this recurring model? Even us, we were used to sell licenses massively every year, millions of licenses. And now we're saying, hey, there's a different way, and we have the same challenges that Moheb said. It's like, yeah, you know, like we got everything up front, you know, suddenly we get only 136 for it. So we had to deal with it. But it was for us also a reason to figure out, okay, how do we build the bridge? And building the bridge between this on-premise, the cloud, there's a lot of space in between what we need to make it possible. So a lot of our development in the future also would be looking at, okay, how can we build a license scheme and a license automation tool that can be on-premise and move into a cloud scenario? How do we do migration of data, for example? We've been doing a lot already with our existing licenses, migrating from Windows Server 2003 to 2012, XP, etc. How do we use that type of scenarios also from a cloud migration perspective? So you will see also a lot of more investment from us in this particular area to make it more easier also for our channel partners to make this type of offerings a services offering towards your customers as well. Roadmap, Lincoln already mentioned it. We're going to launch almost every month new features, new functionalities. And yes, we focus mainly on our cloud products. That's why you see the busiest schedule for our cloud products. Why? That's the core where we're going to develop features for, and then we mount it to our normal on-premise products. Cloud's going to be our number one focus on making sure that we are very rapidly, very quick, because cloud moves very quick. All of the workloads, all of the features that we have currently in our core products that have been developed over the 15 years, we'll be putting that all into the cloud products over the next 2 quarters. And then from that moment on, all the new features, and we'll do it already today, will be first in the cloud product, and then we mount it towards our core product for that. With that, a couple of key takeaways. Easy, complete, and safe. Easy to use, completely complete. We are not a vendor that only focuses on virtualization or physical or only on cloud. We want to manage data in a secure way, safe, and security is for us very important, and complete. That's what we try to do with our software, and that's what you could do today. The other thing is retain customers. It means that you have now a customer that is maybe on a renewal basis, but maybe he thinks about cloud. With this, you can offer an option to cloud. A very easy transaction, very easy to migrate into, no big deployments, etc. It's simple, highly scalable. We have more demand right now for larger enterprises for this types of solutions for internal usage than what we see also in the small medium business space. So it's, in both worlds, it's very, very attractive. And even, yes, in a consumer space, we have this as well. Our Acronis image is in the market here that offers now an unlimited cloud offering for your PCs and phones for $99 a year US. I think it's here 120 Australian. Yeah. So call to action, if you like to. If you have questions, send me an email. Send me an email, send the team an email. We have 5 people. We have James sitting over there, we have Rose standing over there, we have Chris over there, we have Lincoln over here, with me, and then Sergey. Where's Sergey? Sergey's in the back there, our technical sales engineer. So we have several people here. Ask me, but send me an email. It's very simple to remember, jjj@acronis.com. Send me an email, more than welcome to help you. If you're interested in Backup-as-a-Service, and you ask me or any of the colleagues a free trial, we will help you, and you get also from me an Acronis image with unlimited cloud backup from me for free. So that's kind of like what you can take away from this whole session, so that you can make it at least sure the people that put their hands down and I don't want to lose my private data, that you can now protect your private data into the cloud, but also on premise. You can put it still in your hard disk, doesn't matter, you can do it both. And become a partner. The partners has a lot of benefits. All of the products that I talked about, all the physical products installed base, if you become a partner, you can get them. You don't even have to pay us. It's what we want to do. We want to have our partners use those products yourself so that it's much easier to understand and also offer it to your customers. So use it, talk to the people over here. And with that, I think I had spent a lot of time. And I want to close with this in the sense of, maybe you're here, think about if you're not an Acronis partner. I know that half of you are not an Acronis partner yet. Think about maybe to switch over. Chris, handing over to you.
I'm kind of the dumb Yankee who got the aspect ratio wrong, so we got to switch this. All right, here we go. Okay. Well, it's great to be here, everyone. This is my first time to Australia City, so thanks for the reception. I'm very impressed by the turnout, and I think this is going to be a great year for all of us. I was telling the guys earlier that I'm not the most articulate and not the most handsome presenter today, but I think you guys will enjoy my presentation because it's the shortest one. You like that? I'm keeping you away from the drinks, so it's the shortest one. It's also the one where we talk about profitability for you all, and I think that's important. So at the end of the day, to build upon what Moheb and JJ were saying, essentially we know that we've been through it ourselves. We know that a lot of you are still on the journey to moving to the cloud. The cloud is now, but how do you actually stay profitable and increase your profits? For those of you who are already service providers and the majority of your business model is on cloud services today, how do you profit from that? How do you continue to get large profits out of that? And we're very aware of that need because we've had to do the transformation ourselves. And you saw our product roadmap. We're leading with the cloud everywhere. So about 20% of our revenues this year are in cloud, and obviously that is massively growing. So for us, we understand what that means from a business transformation perspective. And we've designed our programs to be very friendly to our partners who are making that transition with us. We also understand that change is hard, and you want to make sure that you have the least amount of disruption to your business while you're in the process of making that change. So for this partner program to be successful, we need to make sure that you're making money and you're also doing it in an intelligent way. I call it profits with a purpose. So when we set this program out, and I believe it launches here in Australia in April, right? So in another week or two, and you'll be able to see it. We'll have all the details on our partner portal. We've shared it with a couple of our key distribution partners, actually Ingram, our key distribution partner here, as well as a couple of our top partners. But everyone will see it publicly in another week or two on our portal. And essentially the key focus here is that as I mentioned, it's really looking at purposeful profits. So as we go up the chain in terms of partners that are committed to Acronis, we're providing greater incentives. Also, we're providing more profitability up to and over 50% marginality for our cloud products, for example. So we recognize that the investment in market development in the cloud takes time, resources, money, And so we're making sure that we're investing with you, and we're rewarding that by putting greater incentives around demand generation. For the most part, this is still a land grab. And I think all of you, I've been in the business now for 20 years. I was with a corporate reseller, then an ISV, then Dell doing a lot of direct stuff. They made a lot of mistakes, as I think a lot of you guys know. And then Microsoft for the last 8 years joined Acronis back in August. And what I know about this business is that customers don't have the time or the resources to change their buying behaviors all the time. They do this on cycles, 3 to 5 years, sometimes even 7 years. And the cloud right now, they're thinking about it and they're buying right now. So it's a land grab, and they're not going to move off of your service, whatever that is, your services suite. They're not going to move off of that or the platform that's supporting that for several years. So this is the time to go after that, which means that we're really investing heavily in demand generation and doing that with and through you, not on our own. So there are essentially the 3 key components to making money. It's incentives, it's also value proposition, and it's the mitigation or let's say it, the ease of doing business, right? How do you make sure that you're not changing your business model and disrupting your core operations? And we're supporting that by ensuring that we have the right incentives, which I showed you in the last slide, along with the right value proposition with and through you. So again, we have the partner portal that has pretty much all the content that you need to understand how to make money with us and where the opportunities are. We have marketing tools and lead gen campaigns, and I'll actually show you in one slide kind of what that the type of campaigns look like. We have a lot of online as well as in-classroom training, online for the sales professionals, classroom training for your techs. So we support heavily your capacity building. We're co-investing with our top partners and even have a recruit program for those of you who are not our top partners today. We're co-investing with you, who are committing business planning with us, with MDF and what we call co-ops. Anyone who is from the Microsoft ecosystem knows that co-ops are essentially earned in MDF. So we have marketing funds available, and we're making commitments around that with you. We also have the dedicated support lines, and we're coming out in H2. We're going to have a whole tool set. We already have some marketing automation, but we're going to have a whole tool set related to content syndication, digital through partner marketing automation. So some real heavy investments in the channel to support you from a value proposition that, again, that essentially extends on the channel incentives that are up to 50% and even more so in terms of marginality for the channel. Just a few examples of the content that we have. You can see a backup as a service. We have a mobile app for our partners, which I think we're launching. We already have it in the US and the UK. I think we're launching it in Australia over the next quarter. We have channel newsletter. There's my happy little face over here if you see it, but I think in APJ it's got JJ's face. So it's customized the content. Oh, is it? All right, we got Lincoln. All right, there we go. And then we've got different channel promos as well as end customer promos that support, and drive kind of the impulse buying or the help us accelerate velocity. So this is the final slide, guys. What we're really trying to do here is make sure that you don't have to build a new practice. You don't have to build a new line of business. Backup is about, and most of us have made our money off of putting a business practice, whether it's core infrastructure, application platform, business intelligence, UC, collaboration, security, mobility, etc. We've built those practices around big infrastructure platform players. This is an example of Microsoft. JJ mentioned earlier AWS, Oracle, Red Hat. we've got alliances with all of them, and what we're recommending and what our content and value proposition is about is how do you attach, whether it's at point of sale, you're doing a Windows Server 2012 migration, or you're doing a migration to Azure, or if it's after point of sale and they've already made that purchase. We see that a lot in mobility, where they'll make a mobile device management play, like we have a great alliance with Good Technology, and they'll do an MDM play, and then Good will turn to us and say, hey, now the partner needs to figure out what to do with their content. And so then they pull us in. In either case, it's essentially a route to market that is an attach motion off of your major platform provider. And I think that's it. And to summarize, essentially, we're delivering to you great incentives that are purposeful in the profitability investments that we're making. We're bringing a value proposition with and through you, and we're doing it in a way that is part of your normal business processes. So it should be very easy to work with us. And that's it. Thanks a lot, guys.
So look, thank you everyone for your time and your patience. I hope you did get some value out of those presentations. I think one thing I'd really like you to take away is we are very channel focused. We work very closely with Moheb, who was inducted into the ARN Hall of Fame 3 years ago. Chris Hilderbrand was recently announced CRN Channel Chief for 2015. Rose has been invited to sit on the ARN judging panel for the ARN Awards this year. So everything we do is very much about channel. It's very much about working with channel. So please enjoy the rest of the night. Have a drink. Some food will be coming out soon. We'll be drawing the Lucky Door Prize in a couple of hours' time. But certainly hunt us out, find us, ask us as many questions as you need. And again, thank you for coming and enjoy the evening.
Oh, wait. There was, under registration, there was one rule, so just so you know it, that nobody can leave if the alcohol, the wine is not empty. So everybody needs to help us to make sure that the bar is empty.
And also, if you do leave, please see the ladies at the front. There is a gift for you to take away with you as you leave. So